In 2011, I won the Black Male Engagement Leadership Award. I followed that up in 2012 by being selected as a fellow at MIT Media Lab in Cambridge. While at MIT Media Lab, I started a project called the Atonement Project. That project was nominated for a TED Prize, which is $1 million global prize, and I was one of 20 finalists globally. Clearly, I didn't win. Might not be here with y'all. After winning that award, I was selected to be part of Kellogg Fellowship, Leadership Fellowship. I went on to teach at the University of Michigan for 3 semesters based on the project I started at MIT Media Lab. In 2014, I was invited to TED's 30th anniversary, where I delivered a talk that was labeled as one of the best of that year and currently has over 1.5 million views. Pretty decent accomplishments. Thank you. In 2015, things got a little interesting. Get a phone call. This woman asked me about my schedule in June, and then she hangs up the phone. I was like, wow, that was weird. Same phone call the next day. The woman says, hey, this is Andrea. I'm so sorry I rushed off the phone yesterday, but I was calling to see if you would be available because Oprah Winfrey would like to interview you. And I was like, let me check my schedule. Fit her up in there somewhere. But I went on to do this interview with Oprah that was supposed to have been 45 minutes. It turned into a 3.5-hour conversation, which she went on to write was not only one of the best interviews in her career, but it was one of the best conversations she's had in her life. And then life got interesting. I had this book come out, 2016, debuted on the New York Times bestseller list. 2017, I got a chance to meet President Obama. And when I walked in the room, he said, so I heard you got a book. And I was like, yes, Mr. President. He was like, so the president can't get a book? I'm like, man, of all days, I don't have a book with me. And then 2018, I get chosen to lead this amazing, incredible organization of some of the most fearless, compassionate, empathetic, and thoughtful leaders that you can imagine. Pretty decent accomplishments, if I do say so myself. Thank you. But why does any of this matter? What does my resume have to do with all this? Well, it matters because on June 22nd, 2010, I walked out of prison after serving a total of 19 years, 7 of that of which was in solitary confinement. When I walked out of prison, I was told that I would be back within 6 months. And here it is, 8 years later, many accomplishments under my belt, leading what I personally believe is one of the most important organizations working on reentry in America. This is work that's personal, because when I got out of prison, there was nothing like this. There was no safe place to go where the men and women who worked there had been through what I had been through. There wasn't a place where I can go and tell somebody that I don't feel comfortable in big open spaces because I've been caged in for 2 decades. There wasn't a place that I can go and get support with just finding and building the fundamental things that it takes to start one's life over: housing, employment, therapy. In this country, we've dropped the ball when it comes to our fellow citizens, largely because we don't think of the men and women in prison as fellow citizens. We think of them as a problem to solve. In June of 2015, I went to Germany, where I spent 4 days examining their prison system. And I can tell you when I went over there, that I went over there with all the biases one can imagine when you think about Germany and its storied history. And I asked myself this question: why would I go to a country that was responsible for the Holocaust and learn about their prison system? And so I was biased. And I had negative opinions and views and thoughts about what would happen. And then I got there. And I was shocked to find that they were so much more advanced than we were when it came to helping men and women re-enter society. And there was this moment where I stood in a cell by myself, kind of reflecting on my experience of prison, when a warden walked in and she asked me, am I okay? And I just told her I was kind of contemplating what had happened in my life. And I told her that I was in a cell at one time for 4.5 years straight on 23-hour lockdown. And what she said to me really awakened something in me that pushes me to do this work at the level in which we do it. And she said we would never do that to one of our citizens. And it was the first time that I felt empathy or compassion for myself as a human being and what I had went through. And it was in that moment that I knew that what we do to people who are incarcerated is not only wrong for them, but it's wrong for us. We get out of people what we put into them. And if you beat people down who have been hurt, who have been damaged, who have been traumatized, who have PTSD, you can't open up the prison gates and say, go out and play nicely and expect positive outcomes. It's only through doing the kind of work that we do, where we dignify our fellow citizens, where we recognize their humanity, where we recognize that all of us are much more than our worst moment, and that each of us are fully capable of redeeming ourselves if we're given an opportunity. And so it's for this reason that I'm thankful to the Bank of America for recognizing our work. You know, you look over at our table, we put the hood in neighborhood. It's all good. Somebody might have some little hot sauce over there for that little chicken. That's what we do. But I'm honored that out of a 50-member staff, over 60% of my staff have been formerly incarcerated or system impacted. Thank you. And it brings me great pleasure to welcome my director of the Hope and Redemption team. It's an honor to welcome this man who I've grown to love and respect as my brother, as my fellow in this work, whose commitment is unparalleled when it comes to the work that we do. Always the first one at the office, 7 in the morning. And he set such a positive example for the rest of my amazing team that's here with us, who he'll tell you more about. So I'd like to welcome the director of the Hope and Redemption team, Sam Lewis.